Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. We have an update regarding Oscar's heart condition. Enzo Fernandez is one of the reasons that Moises Caicedo joined Chelsea. Nicolas Jackson and Bayern Munich have made their future plans very clear, and Chelsea are looking to battle Arsenal for a centre-back. Now, of course, I'm giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 15k by the end of the season. You can also use the new YouTube hype feature, which pushes this video out to a bigger audience. Kicking things off, Simon Phillips has reported an update regarding Oscar's health condition via ESPN, and he says, former Chelsea midfielder Oscar has been released from hospital after being admitted last week following an abnormal cardiac episode. Extensive investigation carried out at the hospital confirmed that the player had presented an episode of vascular syncope, a Sao Paulo FC statement said. I'm pretty sure that's not how you pronounce it, so I apologise, but let's keep reading. Stable and clinically well throughout the hospitalisation period, the player will now follow a medical rest program for the next few days. Sources told ESPN that initial tests came back positive and everything suggests Oscar's heart is intact, adding that all of the bad things that could have happened, this was the least bad. Now, firstly, we're reacting to this because we reacted to the original news that Oscar had some sort of heart condition and I think he collapsed during a medical or something, and we were obviously wishing him the well, wishing him best, wishing him a speedy recovery, and I'm glad that this has been followed up with some, really in-depth statements to say that he is okay. He's had a lot of tests, he's okay, and this is the least sort of worst thing that could happen. Everything, they've got an idea now, a bit of closure of what it may be, and obviously we are so grateful that Oscar is perfectly fine and he's going to recover, and he's now going into a rest program. Like I said, I don't know what that syncope vascular thing is. Apologies if I mispronounced that. I have no idea what that is. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I might ask my wife, she is a nurse. She may have an idea. She probably won't have a clue either. Who knows? We'll ask. But either way, this is really, really good news because, again, there's more to life than football, which is very hard for a lot of us fans to kind of understand because we're so enwrapped in it. But Oscar was a very good player for us, a cult hero. Some would call him a legend in a Chelsea shirt. I personally feel like he left too soon, go to China, but we understand the reasons why. Very, very good footballer. And you never want to see anyone go through anything like this. So I just wanted to touch on this very, very quickly and just give you guys an update. A few of you have asked. Recently, there was some reports as well in between this one and the first one saying that he was going to retire. I don't know how true that is, and obviously this coming from a very reliable source of Simon Phillips. I think now we can kind of wait and there will probably be some sort of official announcement from Oscar or his team or even his family to suggest what the next steps are. The main thing is it's not as bad as it originally sounded. He is going to be okay, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery through his rest program, and we'll soon find out whether he continues to play football or if he does retire. But either way, he's got to do what's best for him and his family. Enzo Fernandez was recently on a podcast called Cora Break, and it was in a different language, but some of the key parts have been pulled out. And there were two main things about this. One was about Enzo Fernandez's character and his mindset, and the second is about Moises Caicedo. And he starts off by saying, "My dream is to win the Champions League or the Premier League with the club. We know what that means for the club. We try to represent the best way every day and every game." And he goes on to say this about Moises Caicedo. He said, "When I found out that Chelsea wants him, obviously I was the first to call him because, well, he is South American. The club asked me on their behalf to try and talk to Moses so that he could come." Now, I absolutely love this from Enzo Fernandez. Firstly, it's very rare that you see current players doing podcasts and interviews like this to this sort of extent. And it was, although it was in a different language, I was watching the clips that were posted, and it was just really nice to see this side of Enzo Fernandez. There's two things to this. One, I love the fact that this guy lives and breathes the project. He lives and breathes Chelsea Football Club. He has really stepped into that vice-captaincy role, and he is one of those leaders around the dressing room. We see a lot of reports from a lot of the other Argentinians that have been in there that he is a pillar in terms of someone to lean on, someone to guide them, someone to understand the culture and the environment that is being instilled at Chelsea and around Cobham, and we absolutely love that. And the reason I kind of stress on it, he is one of my favourite players. There's no sort of bias in this. This is just genuinely a nice thing to recognise for him. One thing I feel like we have to mentally prepare, and something that we always constantly have to bat away at the moment, is the constant approaches and interest from the likes of Real Madrid. Now, we know that some of these reports are bogus and wild and out, not even on this planet, but there is an element of truth to them. Real Madrid have been floating around, sniffing around Enzo Fernandez for many, many years. Ever since we signed him, they really wanted to get him. And I think he would be a perfect midfielder for their squad. I genuinely do. I don't know how you'd fit him in, but in terms of long-term plan, he would be incredible in a Real Madrid squad, if I'm being brutally honest. I think he suits their style of play very, very well. However, keep your hands off. This guy is thoroughly embedded in Chelsea. He bleeds blue. He absolutely loves the club. He loves the fans. Does everything he can to be the best version of himself. He always tries hard on the pitch. Even when he's not performing well, you can see how much it affects him personally and how he wants to be performing at a high level. But I also found it interesting that it was like Agent Enzo trying to sign Moises Caicedo and having the club being like, well, you come from the same part of the world, right? So can you just, pick up the phone, give him a call, which is obviously good to be expected, but it's also something I didn't know. I thought it was very interesting that Enzo was like, I'm going to call Moises and just kind of say, yo, you have to come to Chelsea. This is amazing. They're from the same part of the world, etc. And even he says, well, he's South American. I'm going to give him a call and see if he can come. And could you imagine if we got one without the other? Who knows what would have happened if Caicedo had gone to Liverpool or Enzo to Real Madrid. Chelsea Football Club would be very, very different right now. And I know that we've been through, ups and downs from the signing of Fernandez and Caicedo, etc. But it would have been a very different story, that's all I'm saying. But I'm so glad and grateful that they both play for Chelsea and Enzo and Caicedo get on well. And I really like their partnership. I will die on the hill. I think it's one of the best, if not the best partnerships in the Premier League currently. They are so good when they work together. Now, yes, we've seen the bad sides of them. Yes, we've seen the great sides of them. But I feel like we're seeing a more consistent version of them because Caicedo is working at such a high level consistently. And Enzo Fernandez is getting a lot better. Last season was the best football he played in a Chelsea shirt, in my opinion, in terms of output and just in terms of overall performances. And this season, you can say, a few games he's not been on it, but most of it he's been very, very good as well. So I just thought it was very interesting to kind of have a bit of an insight in terms of Enzo Fernandez as a person, because like I said, you don't really see a lot of interviews and podcasts from current players. It's very rare. So if you haven't watched it and you don't mind reading subtitles or you understand the language you're speaking, feel free to check it out. It's a really good interview. There's a few gems in there, but these are the two main ones that have kind of been spread around social media, and I wanted to get your thoughts and opinions down below regarding Enzo Fernandez. Do you feel like he is embedding himself in the right ways in Chelsea and really stepping up to that vice-captaincy mark? Because I feel like we have to mentally prepare ourselves for the likes of Real Madrid coming in with serious intent to try and sign Enzo Fernandez. And I honestly feel like, as of right now, he would turn them down based on how ingrained he is into Chelsea. However, there is also that element of, this is Real Madrid, this could be my chance to go to the pinnacle of world football, which is the way a lot of players view Real Madrid. The likes of Bellingham, the likes of Trent, the likes of Eden Hazard, for example, was always a dream to play there. So do you think that he would eventually end up at Real Madrid, or do you feel like he's going to be a one-club man and stay for Chelsea for a long, long time? And what are your overall thoughts and opinions on Enzo Fernandez, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch, the way he conducts himself, his performances, the influence he has in the dressing room? Is he one of the leaders in that dressing room? Very curious to know your thoughts. Plenty Goal have reported that Chelsea's Senegal striker Nicolas Jackson has no intention of cutting short his season-long loan move to Bayern Munich, even if it meant sealing a permanent move elsewhere in January. And a few days ago, Bild had reported that Bayern Munich have no plans to end the 24-year-old Senegal forward Nicolas Jackson's loan from Chelsea early, but the German club are unlikely to make a move permanent at the end of the season. Bayern have an obligation to buy for 65 million euros, but only if it is triggered if he starts 40 games. Now, I paired these together because they're a few days apart, but I thought it was very interesting that Bayern Munich and Nicolas Jackson have made their future plans very, very clear. Now, obviously, Nicolas Jackson's going to want to stay at a club like Bayern Munich. It is a huge institution. And look, if he's playing well, he's playing well. If he's liking it there, he's liking it there. It is what it is. I wish him all the best as a professional. I think that, Chelsea threw him under the bus a little bit near the end in that summer transfer window. I don't think we treated him the best that we could have. But at the same time, I feel like Nicolas Jackson had already made his mind up and wanted to leave, right? He didn't want to fight for his position. And things changed very quickly over the course of the summer. What I find very interesting, though, is Jackson's made his plans clear in terms of, all right, if Bayern don't want to keep me in the season, I will just go somewhere else. Like, if I have to do that in January, I have to do that in January. And I find that that's very much drawing a line in the sand of, okay, the Chelsea bridge has been burnt. There is no going back there. Now, I have to preface this with it being Plettigol and Bild, that, they're very reliable, but there are times they're a little bit off as well. They're not gospel, right? But I just thought it was very interesting that you're kind of getting both of these very similar time frames from the club and the player. Bayern Munich made it very clear from the start. They don't want to keep Jackson. They saw it as a loan opportunity. They paid that loan fee up front of like 13, 14 million euros, whatever it may be. Big money. I think it's a record for a loan fee to get up front, which is amazing for Chelsea and would reduce his price tag. But if they've got an obligation for 65 million, I can see why they don't want to then spend that at the end of the season, because then that takes it into silly money in terms of Bayern Munich's sort of wage structure and transfer funds. Their war chest, essentially. But I think that they've been very clever here, because this season is AFCON. And there's no way that Nicolas Jackson was going to start 40 games in that Bayern Munich team. Let's be real. That was never going to be hit. And for some miracle, he was going to get close to it, AFCON would have massively limited the amount of starts that he was going to get across the season. We don't know whether that's 40 games in all comps. We don't know if that's just in, the league. Well, it would have had to be because not enough games in the league. But you don't know if it is all comps or specific competitions as well, because there could be a clause like that only counts in Champions League and league games, or, it's just all domestic games, not European. Who really knows, right? I felt like an idiot saying it was just league because there's not enough games. However, with AFCON as well, and he would have to have been transferred there with the expectation that he is going to be a starter. With the likes of Harry Kane and the rest of the players in that squad, just wasn't going to happen. Now, he has had a fairly decent move over at Bayern Munich, scored a couple goals, played very well. He's a very good ball carrier, we know that. But there was always this air of mystery of are Bayern Munich going to go and spend the money and secure this deal permanently, or is there a route for Nicolas Jackson to come back? Now, when you look at both of these reports together, and they have made their future plans very clear by these reports, again, not gospel, but you get a good picture of what's going to be happening. Seems like Nicolas Jackson's also made his mind up. So it'll be very interesting to see in January if Nicolas Jackson does make a permanent move, like a pre-contract agreement for the summer, while he is still on loan, to see out that loan move at Bayern Munich, and rather than come back to Chelsea then train as part of this bomb squad, as people like to call it, and then leave again, whether it's a case of I'll just stay here to the end of the season and then fly to my new club. But that then raises the question of where would he like to go, because in the summer he was linked with a lot of places. There was Aston Villa, but obviously they had PSR issues. Juventus were one of the ones that said they wanted to have Jackson, but they weren't willing. Well, they just didn't have the money up front to pay for him. There was a couple other clubs as well in mainland Europe that wanted him. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes and what actually unfolds. There is a very, very small chance that he does come back to Chelsea and wants to fight for his place. But all I'm saying is that percentage is so low based on what's been said. The club, Chelsea themselves, haven't really said too much about it. They haven't said that they've handled it poorly. They haven't said that he was part of the plans, other than at the start of the transfer window when that was very much the conversation between Maresca, Nicolas Jackson and the club. But they also very much we don't want to sell him, but we'll listen to offers, which basically means for the right money he can go. And we know that once you're on that list of for the right money he can go on Chelsea, that basically means you're out the door, because they're going to try and source that move as much as they can to generate profit. So there's a very, very slim chance that Chelsea will take him back, and Nicolas Jackson will willingly go back to Chelsea and want to fight for his place. But it looks like the nail is in the coffin for both player and club, unless there is some miraculous turn of form for Jackson. He goes on to score 40 goals in the remaining games, and Bayern Munich go, do you know what? He's going to be worth the investment. He is young. He's a great player, and he's in amazing, world-class form right now. I can't really see that happening, but you never really know. He could worm his way into Bayern Munich permanently. I don't think that Bayern Munich will willingly pay 65 million euros. But at the same time, I know that they're under an obligation if he triggers 40 games, but there may be a conversation between Bayern Munich and Chelsea at the end of the season. Who really knows where they could lower that fee a little, because they've already played so much up front. Who really knows? So I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding Nicolas Jackson and Bayern Munich and Chelsea, that sort of weird triangle of relationship. I feel like the club to club is fairly solid, but I want to know what you guys think is going to happen with Nicolas Jackson. Will he get bought by Bayern Munich? Because I think that's very, very unlikely, almost as unlikely as him coming back to Chelsea. But do you think he'll come back to Chelsea and fight for his place? Or do you think he'll try and secure a move away in January, so at the end of the loan, he can then go to a new club? And how much do you think Chelsea can actually ask for, knowing that this is the deal he's tied in with Bayern Munich, where it's 14 million euros up front, 65 million euros if he plays 40 games. How much can Chelsea realistically charge for Nicolas Jackson? Record Portugal have reported that Arsenal and Chelsea are among the clubs chasing Sporting CP centre-back Ousmane Diomande. However, Galatasaray are also looking at him and believe a bid in January may be what's needed to stay one step ahead of Premier League club, as they are more likely to make a move in the summer. Now, I have to preface this with saying this is Record Portugal, and they usually waffle. I have to preface this. However, Chelsea have been linked with Diomande for a long, long time through various sources that seem very, very reliable, a lot more reliable than Record Portugal. I just wanted to preface that because this is a conversation. I'm just interested to know people's thoughts and opinions, because for me, I think he's a very good centre-back. He is young. He's 21 years old. He's about, 1m90-ish in height. He can play left-sided centre-back, right-sided centre-back. The centre-back is obviously, the position is such an issue at Chelsea right now. And again, hopefully, not to kind of keep banging on about it, because hopefully it does iron itself out with the likes of Fofana staying fit, Trevor Chalobah, stepping up his performances, and them having a really good relationship. They've been playing very well. I always go back to this. The last two Premier League games they've played as a partnership, we've not conceded a goal, and they've been very, very solid. We also have the likes of Josh Ashimpong that you can rotate with the likes of Fofana. There are options. Badiashile, when he comes back, we saw how good he can be against Liverpool. Can he do that consistently? Axel Disasi's trying to push his way into the first team. Will we see him get minutes? Who really knows, right? And we know we're waiting for Levi Colwill to return to fitness, but that's basically a season-long write-off. When it comes to Diomande, this is someone that's been on Chelsea's radar for a long, long time. And the likes of Arsenal have been linked. The likes of Chelsea have been linked. A lot of European clubs have been linked with him. His contract runs out in 2027. And his current market value, according to Transfer Market, is around 45 million euros. Now, yes, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Obviously, if Sporting are going to be looking to lose Diomande, they're going to want as much money as possible. But he does fit and tick a lot of the boxes of this Chelsea project. Young, tall, can play a couple of positions, whether it's left or right-sided centre-back. He is a bit of a bruiser. He's decent on the ball. And even though for his height, some will say it's too short, I think it's just about tall enough, and he's very good in the air. So this could be the type of signing that Chelsea go and battle the likes of Galatasaray, the likes of Arsenal, the likes of other clubs that are going to be interested to try and secure him to bring him in. Because I think if you bring in Diomande, he is a solid reinforcement. He isn't someone that comes in as a first teamer and goes, right, he replaces Colwill, he replaces Fofana, but he comes in as a solid rotation player who is at a very good standard. So it gives Maresca more options, and it's not going to break the bank. He is also the type of player where he is young, and you can have him for the future and see how he develops and how he grows, because he has a high ceiling. We can see that, and it's been reported multiple times. So he is a right-footed centre-back, so I'm assuming he prefers and feels more comfortable on the right-hand side. Not to put words in his mouth, I don't know the guy, but I'm assuming he prefers to play on the right-hand side. But I think this would be a solid addition. It'd be very, very interesting to see what happens in January, if there's any legs to this report. But like I said, there's been so many other more reliable sources over the summer saying that Diomande is going to be leaving. He didn't. So January is obviously coming closer. I think that we might see a bit of movement. Of course, you pay the January tax because it's the middle of the season. But I think for Chelsea, this could be a very, very solid option. I really, really do. And I think that, again, like I said, it's more of a rotation option. Would you take him over a Badiashile? Potentially, would you take him over Josh Ashimpong? Well, you want to play Ashimpong, but when he's not available, or you want to use him alongside him, Diomande is just a solid option. Would you take him over Tosin? Probably. So it'd be interesting. He is young, he's developing, he's a solid centre-back, and it'd be very interesting to see what happens. Curious to know what Galatasaray are going to do, because they've been spending massive money in recent windows. Obviously, the securement of Ousmane, etc., and other players, trying to build a super team over there, doing very well and doing bits as well. So, this is one that's going to be, looked at from above for a little while and kind of monitoring and see what happens. But I would like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding Ousmane Diomande. Do you know much about him? Do you need to do research? Do you think he could be a solid addition to Chelsea's squad? Do you see him as a first teamer, which would cause issues long term? Or do you see him as a solid rotation option so Enzo Maresca has a bit more flexibility with the players who are injured a little bit more, who aren't in the right run of form, and trying to find that solid partnership in the absence of the likes of Levi Colwill and at times Wesley Fofana? And that's the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that, you're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.